Hello students, today we're doing lesson 4.6 on absolute value equations. So if you remember an absolute value of something, so the absolute value of 4 is 4, but the absolute value of negative 4 is also 4. So it's a positive whatever is inside of it. Okay, so not the opposite, but the positive. So if I had the absolute value of x, that's going to equal x, but it can also equal, let me write that differently. But negative x inside of it can also equal positive x, okay? So we're going to take this and kind of solve some equations with it. But first, let's talk about graphing. If I have this equation, the absolute value of x equals 3, and I want to graph it on a number line. We did these a while back. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. -1, -2, -3, -4. Okay, so if I wanted to graph this, I would have to say that the x inside of here could be 3 or it could be -3. Okay, so when I graph that, I'm going to change this color over here. I would graph -3 and 3. Okay, so let's talk about that. If I would say this is x equals 3 or -3, because remember, this is the absolute value. So I'm trying to get a positive 3 in the end, but I could have a -3 inside of that, and it would equal positive 3. Okay, so my answer for x equals, the absolute value of x equals 3 would be x equals 3 or -3. Okay, so let's do another one like that. If I have the absolute value of x equals 4, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say what can be inside of here? What can x equal? Well, x can equal 4, or it could equal -4. Now let's do it with an actual equation. So example 1 is going to be the absolute value of 2x plus 5 equals 11. Okay, so I want this whole thing right here to either equal 11 or it can equal -11, because once I do the problem, the absolute value would give me positive number, right? Okay, so how I'm going to solve that is I'm going to have to solve two different equations. I'm going to have to do 2x plus 5 equals 11. And I'm also going to have to do 2x plus 5 equals -11. So most of these are going to have two answers, because inside the absolute value sign, I could have an 11 or I could have a -11. So I want to make that equal to 11 and -11. So now I'm going to solve this just like I've been solving these all along. And I've had a few of y'all, when I was checking papers, noticing y'all were not doing your steps to your equations. So what I'm going to be doing on here, these steps are what you should be showing on your work. So first I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, and that gives me 2x equals 6. Then I'm going to divide by 2, and that gives me x equals 3. So one of my answers is x equals 3. Now I'm going to go on this other side, and I'm going to do the same steps. I'm going to minus 5, but I'm going to get different answers here because I have -11 minus 5. That's -16. Then I'm going to divide by 2, and I get x equals -8. Okay, so x equals 3. X equals 3 and, not or, and it equals -8. So here's my answer. Now, you might be saying, well, I still don't understand why we get two answers. So let's check both of these answers and see if they work in the equation. So my equation up here is what I'm going to check. Okay, so here's my check. Let's see. I'm just going to write it down first so that we remember what it was. And now I'm going to put the 3 in place and the -8. So I'm going to do 2 different checks, right? I'm going to have absolute value of 2 times 3 plus 5 equals 9. And I'm going to have the absolute value of 2 times -8 plus 5 equals 9. Okay, so I'm going to do both of these. I'm going to start on the left. I have absolute value of 6 plus 5 equals 9. Oh, I'm sorry. I was trying to figure out what I did wrong. This is not equals 9. I don't know why I wrote that on that side. Okay, it's 11, equals 11. Okay, so what is the absolute value of 11? Okay, it's just 11. So my check works on that one. Now let's go over to the other side. I have the absolute value of -16 plus 5. Well, -16 plus 5 is -11. And what is the absolute value of -11? It's just 11. So that one checks too. So this is showing me that I can have 2 answers to this equation and they both come out correct. Okay, that's what happens when you have an absolute value, because I can either have 11 in the absolute value, or I can have -11 in the absolute value. Okay, let's do another example. And then we're going to be done. Just 2 examples today. Oops, sorry. Example 2 is a little bit longer. We have 5 plus absolute value of 2y plus 4 minus 5y in the absolute value equals 21. Okay, now on this one, I do not have the absolute value by itself. It's inside of something else. We have this plus 5 right here. That is not in the absolute value. Well, before I do anything, I want to move that plus 5 over to the other side. So I'm going to minus 5. You always want to have your absolute value by itself. So this is going to equal 0. And so it's gone on that side. So all I have left is the absolute value. And on the other side, I have 21 minus 5 is 16. Okay, now I have an absolute value equation. So first you have to get rid of everything and have your absolute value by itself. Now I'm going to make that absolute value, or what's inside of it, I'm going to have it equal to both 16 and I'm going to have it equal to -16. Okay, because that's what I want inside those. Inside this absolute value, I want this. This could be 16 or it could be -16 in here and I would still get the right answer. Okay, so now I'm going to solve this just my usual way. So my first thing you always do is combine like terms if you can. And on this one, I do have like terms. I'm going to get -3y plus 4 equals 16. Now I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. And that gives me -3y equals 12. Then I'm going to divide by -3. And I get y equals -4. Okay, that's one of my answers. Now I'm going to move over here to the other side. And I'm going to add my like terms. So I get -3y plus 4 equals -16. I'm going to minus 4 from both sides. And that gives me -3y equals -20. Then I'm going to divide by -3. And that gives me y equals positive 20/3. Because it's a negative over a negative, that gives me a positive. So my answer is y equals -4 and y equals 20/3. Okay, and then you could check this problem, and I'm going to go ahead and check it on this part. Some of your things do not say, they do not have you checking. So if it doesn't say you have to check, then you don't have to check, but you can if you want to. Okay, so my problem looked like this. 5 plus absolute value of 2y plus 4 minus 5y into absolute value equals 21. Okay, so I'm going to check this with both answers, the the negative, oops, hold on, negative 4 and the 20 over 3. Okay, so let's check that. So first one, I'm going to put in the negative 4. So I have 2 times negative 4 plus 4 minus 5 times negative 4 equals 21. So notice, if you're don't understand this right now, I'm just putting in the negative 4, which was right here, in for the y. Okay, now I can do my calculations. So I still have just this 5 plus, and now I have negative 8, because I multiplied these two, plus 4 minus a negative 20 in absolute value. Okay, I'm going to keep working on this inside of that absolute value. I'm going to add up all of this now. Okay, and you could do that in your calculator, or if you are good at this in your head, you can do it in your head. So negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4, and then minus a negative 20 means plus a positive 20. So that's all going to give me 16. And now the absolute value of 16 is 16. Positive 16, right? So 21 equals 21. So that one checks. Now I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to use this 20 over 3. So this one's going to be a little bit harder because it has a lot of fractions in it. So I have 2 times 20 over 3 plus 4 minus 5 times 20 over 3. Absolute value. Okay, so now I'm going to do my multiplication, and I get 40 over 3 plus 4 minus 100 over 3 was 21. Okay, I don't have a calculator with me, so I'm trying to do this all in my head. So I'm going to do these two first. Okay, I'm going to add these up. So when I do that, I'm leaving the 4 until the last because it doesn't have a common denominator right now. So 40 minus 100 is going to be negative 60 over 3 plus 4 equals 21. Okay, negative 60 over 3, that's going to equal negative 20, right? Because it's like negative 60 divided by 3. So now I have negative 20 plus 4, which is negative 16. But when I do my calculation, when I do my absolute value, then that comes out to a positive 16. And 5 plus positive 16 is 21. So both of my checks worked. Look at how much work I did just for a check. Some of y'all are not doing your checks correctly either, and you're going to get points taken off. You have to do the steps of your check correctly so that I know that you're actually checking it. You're not just writing down some numbers and saying, I don't really understand what this check means. If you don't understand what the check means, then you need to be asking questions. Okay, in either Zoom class or texting me. Okay, that's all the lesson for today. So you will have a few problems to do like this. Make sure that you're doing 2 different problems, one positive, one negative, when you are solving your problems. Okay, that's all for today.